On the river is a giant machine of Dr. Otto. He is conducting fusion experiments. Just a small mistake can destroy the whole city. The man who is frantic over the loss of his wife and is nervously controlled by tentacles is on the verge of destroying them all. Our Spider-Man Peter Parker is bravely fighting to stop him, protect Jane, and save the city. Why did Dr. Otto become so corrupt? Can Peter win? Invite you to watch the second film of the legendary series with me. Peter Parker struggles to balance his crime-fighting duties as Spider-Man with the demands of everyday life. He started looking for a part-time job in a pizzeria. One day he was delivering goods on the road, due to the long distance, and also had to save 2 children who were almost hit by a car. So he delivered pizza late to the appointment, and couldn't get the money. When he arrived at the pizzeria, he was immediately fired from his job. Going back to the pictures of himself, the only job he had was forced by the editor-in-chief to give him a check that wasn't enough to pay the money he advanced. He lost his job and struggled financially while struggling to maintain his physics studies at Columbia University. Peter confronts the professor and talks to him. He tells him that Peter's grades are dropping dramatically. If he wants to continue his studies, he must work harder, and soon he will have the opportunity to study under the famous Dr. Otto Octavius. Peter sadly arrives at Aunt May's house to find Jane and Harry there, and they had Aunt May throw a small party to surprise Peter. After a few words between him and Harry, Peter also understood the heart Jane had given for yourself. In addition, he learned that his Aunt May was in danger of having to mortgage the property to pay off her mortgage. She said it was okay for her to take care of herself, though she cried because she missed Uncle Ben, and she gave Peter $20 to ride home. Arriving home, Peter and Jane met again downstairs as if they had first talked. The two looked at each other. Peter's heart was like 1,000 knife wounds piercing his throat speechlessly, partly because he loved Jane, partly because he didn't want Jane to be in danger for him. So he swallowed bitterly and once again rejected Jane's heart. Promising only to come to Jane's first performance, he went up to the house to meet the landlord, who urged Peter to pay the rent, then coldly took the $20 that Aunt May had given him. Perhaps the only consolation for Peter in this room was the love of the landlord's daughter for him, but Peter still pretended not to know. Harry is now head of Oscorp's research department, and he has funded the brilliant nuclear scientist Otto Octavius. He dreamed of a complete source of enormous thermal energy. Harry had facilitated Peter to meet him. He had just fallen in love with Peter, a smart and kind young man. Peter looked at the doctor's inventions with great difficulty, and had no difficulty in saying all his ideas and ambitions. Otto was delighted that someone understood him, and also emphasized to Peter the dangers of this experiment. Sitting at the dinner table, Peter had a very intimate conversation with the doctor. He would have a lot of things, both about his work and his secret romance with Jane, and received very useful advice from the respected doctor. Peter changes into a dashing suit and prepares to go to Jane's show, but on the way he meets a bandit, which Peter hates so much. Choosing between responsibility and love is difficult. He finally chooses to drive away that bandit while saving the Theo people, which missed Jane's performance. At the Threader, Jane anxiously expects Peter but is disappointed not to see his silhouette. Peter was late, so he could only wait for Jane outside the Threader, and when he saw Jane come out, he didn't have time to explain when he saw her hugging and kissing someone else. Peter was shocked to leave. He ran on the road, flew over buildings, but it seemed that something was wrong. His abilities and eyesight seemed to be significantly impaired. The next morning he called to explain to Jane, but his misunderstanding of him was so heavy that Jane didn't want to hear Peter explain. Peter and the press were delighted to come to Dr. Otto's public experiment. If successful, humans would have an endless source of fusion energy to use. He wore a suit bearing extremely strong robotic arms with artificial intelligence to control the experiment. They were connected directly to his nervous system. The doctor began the experiment. At first everything went very smoothly, but only a moment of energy control glitch threw the experiment off balance. Octavius' refusal to shut down in the face of everyone's advice led to a catastrophic outcome. His wife died. The neurosuppressive chip that prevented the arms from dominating his mind was destroyed, and those arms were buried deeper into his spine. Luckily, Peter showed up in time to save Harry and shut down the machine before it caused further damage. Otto Octavius fainted and was taken to the hospital. While the doctors were about to perform surgery to remove the arms and tentacles, the arms, tentacles, suddenly woke up and killed the medics. The tentacles developed cognitive abilities after the inhibitory chip was destroyed. When he woke up to find the scene of death, Octavius left the hospital and hid in an abandoned harbor. And now he has been nicknamed Dr. Octopus by the Daily Bugle. The tentacles persuade him to try the experiment again and, in order to get money, rob a bank. He then planned to kidnap Aunt May. Peter fought him fiercely and later saved Aunt May. After Peter misses seeing Jane's first play, Peter feels a lot of regret, plus he is shunned by Jane and his best friend Harry Osborn. Jane is so dissatisfied while dating Peter, she gets engaged to astronaut John Jameson, only to retaliate against Peter. John Jameson is the son of J. Jonah Jameson, the owner of the Daily Bugle, and Harry misunderstands that Spider-Man murdered his father, Norman Osborn. With the pressures of his life increasingly causing him to lose his Spider-Man powers, Peter was tired of choosing to live for himself or live for his responsibilities. He sadly sat remembering Uncle Ben, remembering the words he used to teach him. If Uncle Ben was by his side now, it would be good. He went to the hospital for a medical examination, and the doctor concluded that he was suffering from psychological problems. In the face of these pressures, he decides to give up his Spider-Man mask and return to normal life to want to renew his love affair with Jane. A janitor picked up the Spider-Man suit and brought it to J. Jonah Jameson, who blamed himself for making Spider-Man disappear. Peter reveals to Aunt May that Uncle Ben's death not long ago was partly his fault. Although she was a little shocked at first, Aunt May quickly forgave Peter. When a 9-year-old neighborhood boy mentions the disappearance of Spider-Man and the subsequent rise in New York, Peter begins to ponder whether to give up Spider-Man. The corrupt doctor had already begun to build his deadly structure, but to complete it Octavius needed a large amount of tritium to fuel the reactor. He went to Harry to claim it. Harry initially refuses because the experiment has the potential to raise the city, then eventually agrees to the condition of capturing Spider-Man alive. Harry said it was Peter Parker who was the key to finding Spider-Man, because Peter often took pictures of Spider-Man in newspapers, assuming Peter knew Spider-Man. But Harry also told Octavius not to harm Peter. One night, on a street in the city, Peter sees a house on fire. Peter desperately jumps inside, succeeding in saving a baby, but now he is no longer Spider-Man, can only turn his eyes to watch the people on the other floor suffocate. For a moment Peter wondered to himself if his choice to give up his powers was the right one. Arriving at the host's daughter's room offering him cake and a glass of milk, she actually loves Peter. Then she gives him a note with Aunt May's note. Peter reads it and then rushes to find her. He arrived to find Aunt May moving out. Aunt May hugged Peter and thanked him and bravely told him the truth. Aunt May also told Peter about Spider-Man, saying there are very few people who can give up their own interests to sacrifice for society like that. There will always be a hero there to protect, fight for peace and maybe die in pride. Those are always examples worth following. Peter hears Aunt May's words and is determined to return, but it seems that the power has not yet fully returned to him. In a fancy restaurant, Peter and Jane are sitting down to eat and talk together. Jane tells Peter that she regrets thinking badly of Peter so many times. She wants him to think and try to improve their relationship back to the way it was. Peter hesitates but ultimately decides to reject Jane's heart. Jane's heart is torn apart again. Suddenly out of nowhere Dr. Otto appears, a shot that destroys the restaurant. He goes to Peter to force him to find Spider-Man, but out of his promise not to harm Peter, he takes Jane away. Peter wakes up, realizing that his Spider-Man powers have recovered from the agitation. He steals the Spider-Man suit from the Bulge newsroom and puts it on. Peter gets into a fight with Otto on a clock tower and the two fall onto the roof of a moving bullet train. The two went on to fight a fierce battle. Then Octavius breaks the ship's controls and jumps out of there. The ship carrying countless lives of people is out of control and rushing away at an incredible speed. Peter jumps out in front of the bow, uses his legs to block it. It is not good that he shoots silk. He shoots all the silk he has, using all his strength, finally stopped the train before it slipped off the tracks. When he fainted from exhaustion, passengers on the train carried him into the carriage. He gradually comes to his senses and discovers his Spider-Man mask has been removed. The passengers were grateful to him and vowed not to reveal his true identity. Then suddenly Octavius returned to attack Peter again, so that, having been badly wounded and exhausted, Peter was knocked down by him and brought to Harry. After handing the tritium to Octavius, Harry had been waiting for this moment for a long time. In front of him was the one who had killed his father. He approached with the knife, preparing to kill Spider-Man. Harry removed his Spider-Man mask and was stunned to see that it was his best friend Peter. Peter wakes up and tries to convince Harry that more important things are being threatened by Dr. Otto, the city and Jane. Harry reluctantly revealed his whereabouts. On the riverbank is the Doctor and his crazy experiment, who tells Jane that Spider-Man is dead. But as soon as he finished, Peter appeared and kicked him out, trying to save Jane. One of Octavius' tentacles caught Peter and the two got into a fight. Peter has to fight and protect Jane, so he is attacked a lot by Otto, but in the end, thanks to bravery and luck, Peter succeeds in defeating Otto with an electric attack, defeating Otto. He takes off his mask to let Otto know his true identity and persuades him to give up, telling him to turn off the fireball. Turn around and do what's right for mankind, but why those tentacles have changed me. Otto finally overpowered the tentacles so that they obeyed his orders and submerged the thermal reactor and himself into the Hudson River. Later, Jane also learns the real face of Spider-Man as well as why they can't be together. She was dumbfounded when she understood everything. Peter returned Jane to John and left. Harry's father's illusion appears in a mirror and asks him to kill Spider-Man to avenge his death. Harry refuses to harm Peter and smashes the mirror. He discovers a secret room behind the mirror. The room contained Green Goblin equipment and several ampules of serum. Mary Jane on her wedding day left John in front of the altar of the cathedral, left him a letter and ran back to Peter's apartment. She confesses her true feelings to Peter. She says she can't live without Peter. She wants to defy everything so she can be by his side. Even if she dies, she is committed to volunteering. The two kissed and then heard a police criminal chase. She encouraged him to help the police. This is the most engaging and touching film in the Spider-Man series. It very realistically portrays Peter's suffering when faced with choices, between love and responsibility, between himself and his family. We will eventually face decisive crossroads, Peter. I hope you will make the right decisions. Bring happiness to yourself as well as your family and society. Thank you for watching the whole movie with me. If you see it or let me ask for a like and press the follow button. See you in the next videos.